The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Russel Grant. Russel Grant is a British astrologer and media personality. He has written several books on astrology and provides syndicated newspaper horoscopes and operates premium rate astrology on phone lines. But he's been doing this for a very long time. He's been in the media. He's been in television presenting. He was in Celebrity Fit Club. He was on Strictly Come Dancing. Who can't remember Russell and the beautiful personality he brought to the show and how great he was. On Celebrity MasterChef, he's had guest appearances on This Morning and Loose Women, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, in Lorraine, you name it. The list is endless. I've had the pleasure of meeting Russell quite a few times. He's a good friend. He's always been lovely in any way, in every way that I've met him, in any and every context. He's just a beautiful human being, and I'm sure you're going to love this interview with this beautiful human being. Thank you so much. Now, you started your career as an astrologer. I mean, tell us how it all started for you.
Well, I didn't start as an astrologer.
Oh, okay.
I actually started in show business. When I was young, I was brought up in a very small village in the county of Middlesex called Harefield, which became very famous as the leading heart transplant hospital. And I went to an ordinary school, but my family are all very much showbiz. My mum worked at Pinewood Studios doing contracts. My dad was a set designer for big movies like Cleopatra with Burton and Taylor. My uncle was in films, later went on to win an Oscar for The Deer Hunter. And so my whole life was movies and films. And I went to a small drama school in Ruislip, very near Harefield, which was the Daphne Davies School of Dance and Drama. We never danced, but we did a lot of drama. And from there, it was linked to the very famous LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. And that's where I took all my exams. And I appeared in lots and lots of British favourites. Fen Street Gang, On the Buses, Doctor in the House, a lot of BBC dramas. I did famous series such as Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, which was on BBC Two. And then I appeared in the West End. I was in Hans Andersen at the Palladium. I was in Tom Brown's School Days at the Cambridge Theatre. Astrology was a hobby. And I was doing a reading for one of Britain's most famous personalities in the showbiz industry, and that's Tommy Steele. And through him, I became a friend of Princess Margaret, sadly no longer with us. And I did a very big charity ball, which was held every year in London. I don't know if it's still held. It's called the Butterfly Berkeley Ball. Mm-hmm. And it's where they raised a lot of money for various charities. And really, that was my introduction to the royal family. So I became tagged after doing a reading for the Queen Mother, and the pictures went all around the world as the Astrologer Royal. There's not been a British Astrologer Royal ever. I doubt if there'll be one ever again. And for a long time, I gave readings to Princess Diana, the Princess of Wales, kept that secret until it was announced in America by Paul Burrell, who was her butler, when she was asked, or he was asked, did Diana ever see astrologists and psychics? And he said yes, but the only one she ever trusted was Russel Grant. So during that whole period, since meeting the Queen Mother, really, and it became public, that's when the majority of people knew me as an astrologer. So it was only a hobby, and it wasn't where I began.
Wow. And when did you actually begin, when you went into the West End and you started playing?
When did I start the astrology?
Yeah.
It was really about the age of 15. It was a hobby. It was something that intrigued me and interested me because I thought it was a load of rubbish. That how could people be born under 12 signs? And then once I went into it, I realised that what you read in the papers and magazines is what we call sun sign astrology. And that's only a tiny bit to what proper astrology is. Astrology is the most amazing art and science. Nothing to do with prediction or fortune telling. People get that wrong. But all to do with the potential of the human soul and the human being. So if you have a soul within you and you're not directing or focusing it properly, you feel dissatisfied, unfulfilled, and have a very unhappy life. If you connect with yourself and can bring out what you should be doing and fulfill your potential, you're very happy, you're very fulfilled, and you're very satisfied. And as a result of that, you make other people happy too.
Absolutely. Now, showbiz obviously is very competitive and it's hard. How have you managed to reinvent yourself so many times and so many different kinds of ways?
Well, I think the important thing is to go back to a period. I became very famous in the 1980s because I became the first astrologer ever to appear on television regularly. I was on every day on BBC Breakfast Time and then the ITV's competitor, which was called TVAM. And I then went over to America and I was signed by Fox Television. And then I got the news that my grandmother had Alzheimer's and I came back to be her carer. And I then went through a very dark period of great depression and sadness because my grandmother died. And when you've been a carer for someone and you get into a routine and you're looking after someone and that person disappears, then you don't know what to do with your own life. And it was a case of physician heal thyself. In other words, as an astrologer, I needed to look and find what was lacking in my life. And I realised I'd left showbiz behind, the music, the acting, the singing. And so what I did in 2009 was I went back to it. And I was very lucky to appear at the Stephen Joseph Theatre with a very famous playwright called Sir Alan Ayckbourn. I got wonderful reviews. I then went to the Brighton Festival and appeared in a great play by Paul Dowse, which won the Evening Standard One Act Play Award. And then I went more and more back into showbiz while still keeping astrology as a hobby. So what had happened was I was in showbiz. It was my profession. Astrology was a hobby. Astrology took over. And then to get my balance back, which is what life is all about, getting a balance, astrology had to balance with the showbiz. The irony is the show that really helped me reinvent myself, Strictly Come Dancing, which in America is called Dancing with the Stars, ironically hosted by Tom Bergeron, who I launched the FX channel with in New York. And Strictly Come Dancing was just fuel to my soul and my spirit. And it enabled me to be me again. But every week they said, an astrologer to the stars, Russel Grant, which basically meant if I hadn't become famous as an astrologer, I wouldn't have done Strictly Come Dancing. That was such a success for me. I managed to reinvent myself, one could say, through the BBC and through my wonderful producer, Moira Ross, who understood me as a performer, and Flavia Cacace, who basically gave me routines that was, shall we say, razzmatazz. And from that, the world famous Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber rang me up and asked me to go back to the Palladium in the starring role of the Wizard of Oz.
Amazing.
And, you know, it's just one thing after another. And all of that really is true. I think the turning point for me, in fact, I know the turning point for me, I'd hit 27 stone in weight and I had to get myself back into some form of fitness. I'm now about 15 and a half, 16 stone. So I've lost 11 stone. I've lost nearly half my body weight. It's amazing how depression can leave you in a very dark place where you don't care. So the reinvention came when I got it into my mind and psyched myself up that I had to change. Otherwise I would die. Because during that dark period in about 2005 to 2008, I'd had 2 near heart attacks, suspected prostate cancer, and even skin cancer. I had to have a growth removed from my nose. And I think that's the body giving up. And once the body gives up, then all kind of terrible things can happen to you. But if the mind gives up, then you're in much more serious trouble. And it was about getting my mindset right to be able to get everything else right. And that's what I did. You've got to want to do something. If you don't really believe it or believe in yourself, then you won't do it. And January the 5th, 2009, I woke up one day and I couldn't walk. I was on a stick. And I thought, I've got to change myself. And that's what I did.
If you're interested in finding your true purpose, if you're interested in finding your legacy, if you're interested in growing, if you are sick and tired of reading books that don't help you, haven't helped you, or are not helping you, or attending courses and seminars that haven't really had an impact in your life, I invite you to read my book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose, out now. For more information, go to www.thequestion.co. If you're interested in working with me, contributing to the magazine, maybe speaking at any of our many events around the world, partnering or licensing The Best You, go to www.thebestyou.co.
Well, we've been discussing that a few times with several people that I've interviewed. Is about basically about inspiration and about inspiring people. But it really is down to limiting beliefs, isn't it? I mean, if you don't think that you can actually achieve something, or you can't actually
do it,
you'll never do it.
You see, during the dark period that I was in, having lost both my grandmothers in a very short space of time, and my grandmothers were extremely important to me, and still remain very important to me. I needed to help others. That was one thing I needed to do. And because of my background in showbiz, I actually set up a drama school. Actually, it was an academy of showbiz, it's now called, since Strictly. But I was helping people who are illiterate to actually perform at Dylan Thomas's Under Milkwood by teaching them orally. I had kids with autism, Asperger's syndrome, and we put on in the beautiful Port Merion in North Wales in Snowdonia, Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. And then for the royal wedding between William and Kate, I put on A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I directed, and used all the people from the community. And that was a wonderful sense of achievement, was watching other people achieve what they never thought they could do. So my sense of achievement came through the accomplishment of others. People who were living in a town called Blaenau in North Wales, which is one of the poorest towns in the Principality, possibly in Britain. And a lot of people there, needed to do things with their lives. And so we had an influx of a lot of people, young and old, who came from Blaenau. And I was teaching them, how to perform. And then to see them in this beautiful place, Port Merion. And there were queues around the block. We did 9 performances. On the 9th day, it was so successful. We had 200 people queuing up, waiting for ticket returns. How wonderful is that for them? How wonderful for me that I was able to give something of myself to inspire them.
Well, I think, part of what you were saying about knowledge and talking about your career and how you reinvented yourself several times. I mean, really, in my mind, it's about also people willing to learn. I mean, if you look at phones and how they've developed over the last 4 or 5 years, the iPhone 4, the iPhone 5, it's a continual change. And I think that's the same with people. People have to be looking at themselves and saying, how can I improve?
Got to evolve.
How can I enhance? How can I evolve? That's obviously something that you've done yourself.
Well, it is. And sometimes by more accident than anything else, because you get into a space and a place in life where if you don't do something, then you die. Yeah. And if you don't die physically, you die mentally or emotionally or psychologically. And so therefore, that's why you have to discover the real you. That brings me back to astrology, because the real and proper astrologer is there to help you to discover the real you and bring out the real you. There are people who call themselves astrologers who don't even know about astrology because people think an astrologer as a psychic or a tarot reader or a palm reader. They're totally different things. And people always think there's a quick route to stardom, a quick route to wealth, a quick route to somewhere, that you don't have to work for it. And that is so wrong. You do have to work for it. Because even if you get overnight success, to sustain and establish yourself and keep yourself there takes hard work. I mean, I started to make it in 1978. Queen Mother. I was lucky. Right place, right time. Queen Mother came to me for a reading, 1978, and my first break came with the BBC in 1978 and Granada in 1978. Therefore, the connection with being thrust into the limelight, you have to then work it out. You have to strategize. You have to know what you're good at and stick to your limitations. Don't do too much too quickly, too soon. I became famous as an astrologer, tagged the Astrologer Royal. But if I'd have then suddenly done a big tap dance in front of everybody, I'd think, well, what is he? And so therefore you dissipate your talent, your gifts, your persona. And people are funny in Britain in the fact they like to keep you in a box, marked whatever they know you for. In the States, it's different. In the States, if you're multi-talented, then that's wonderful. Hey, you can do this and that. And it's all about being clever in the way you strategize and do the things that you do. And that's why whatever you choose to do, you've got to have some kind of natural bent towards it. If you haven't got a natural leaning towards something, don't do it just for the sheer sake of what you think is going to be easy, quick pickings, because it won't be, because you'll soon be found out.
If you're interested in watching the video content of this interview and many others, or interested in learning from world leaders and teachers, go to www.thebestyou.online.
I mean, one of the things when you were talking is, are you more of a visionary? I mean, do you get gut feelings with projects or things I think we're all intuitive. I think we all have feelings. Some people call it feminine intuition. If it's a woman, you have these feelings. And I mean, I've got a saying when people come to me for readings and they'll say something like, well, I'm not sure my mother knows about me. I go, mothers know everything. Even if you don't get on with your mother, mothers know everything. And I put that down to feminine intuition. Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to understand that your sixth sense is there to help you. It's not there to prognosticate. It's not there to prophesy. It is there basically to help you make the best and most of yourself. So if you meet with a person and you don't get a good feeling, then you should avoid that person. They're not right for you. And we call that, a character judgment, when people sort of sum someone up very quickly. I'm usually rarely wrong, that if my first feeling is the one I get, it's usually the right one. And it's worth, keeping that into consideration. It's also very important, I think, never to judge somebody through someone else. Mm-hmm. There's another old saying, which is speak as you find. Mm-hmm. In other words, just if someone says to you, oh, that person, so keep it in the back of your mind, but don't make that your final judgment. I mean, I'm helping a lot of people at the moment in various ways, through possible career breaks or anything else, and helping them as much as I can. Another old saying, which I always follow, is do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. So if you do something to someone and you don't want that done unto you, then don't do it. Because karma has a very strange way of coming round and biting you on the bum. Yeah. There's also a lot of friends of mine saying karma takes too long. Yeah. And they want to get even now. Another saying, what comes around goes around, and revenge is a dish best eaten cold. In other words, leave it. Leave something because in the end, whatever you do, actions have consequences. Yeah. Make sure that you do something nice at least once a day. I can't say
that I spend my whole day looking to do something nice. And sometimes people don't warrant that. But an opportunity will arise, I've found daily, where you can do something to help someone. And I try to take that opportunity. My biggest fault is impatience and intolerance. Can't abide a fool. Why doesn't that person hurry up? And I do consciously now think to myself, if I walk into a post office and see a queue, I force myself to queue. Whereas in the past, I would storm out. Bloody post office. I know that's just very silly and maybe a trivial way of looking at it, but if you put that in a greater sense, you know, it's like, I think the worst things in this world now, it's sort of bigotry and prejudice. You've only got to look and see what happens in world religion. Half the reason for our problems in this world, and the other half is probably things like famine and starvation, politics, and all that goes with it. So you've got to be prepared to give of yourself a little, I believe. But always be careful, because also people will try to take advantage of that. There's always pitfalls.
There always are. There's always are. That's what life's all about. What you're working on? What's your next project?
I'm working on a number of things at the moment. I'm wanting to do some astrology, but I'm calling that proper astrology. I don't mean that in a superior way. I'm wanting to teach people astrology more so they know about the real astrology, how it can help them and help others. In the showbiz scheme of things, lots of musicals, lots of straight dramas. I'm pretty determined to do a straight play again. I did 2 when I came back into theatre with Alan Ayckbourn's theatre, the Stephen Joseph and Brighton Festival. I'd like to do a straight play now. I've done 2 big musicals, The Wizard of Oz and Grease. I'm loving to dance because that keeps me fit, which is why I took that up, part of the weight loss thing. And I'm doing lots of other projects in all kinds of showbiz, lighting, sound. I want to get into the ecological side of that because, again, you know, there's so much suspicion about the whole of this business of, you know, the ozone layer going and climate change, that, you know, maybe we should be doing our little bit here. I mean, I wonder if these lights are ecological. How much are we burning up here? So I would like to do things to help Mother Earth and through my profession. So I'm working with a lot of people in that side too. It's all forms of showbiz, all forms of communication, where other people can learn and be involved, and as well as feeding my soul, which is through performance.
And what would you like your legacy to be?
My legacy to be, well, hopefully that he brought a little bit of joy into someone's life, and he spoke a bit of sense.
That's lovely. And thank you very much for watching Inspiring People. Today we've been with Russell Grant. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, Russell.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
You.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.